Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Michaela Peters. Somehow my video from yesterday got deleted, and that's fine. I'll just redo this. I really need to get a real camera or something like that because it's going to make it easier. Okay, so I want to start off by thanking people who have connected with me from my channel in a way that I feel like is very meaningful and adds value in my life. I have gotten anywhere from financial advisors to business advisors to software development advisors from this channel who've really helped me with growing my channel, growing different passions and ideas that I have, and I'm very excited and beyond appreciative for all the support that I've had in these ways. So thank you very much to those people. If you know who you are, shout out. Okay. One thing I want to talk about today, because I had a conversation with one of these types of people yesterday, and this was more along the lines of, let's say, business support in Finland, but we were talking more specifically about levels of trust and obligation that exist in Finland that are just not as common in the US. Kind of like this idea of following through on things and any sort of contract that you would have in Finland being legally binding almost, if it is even just a verbal contract, which I thought was kind of crazy. Whereas I was sort of explaining that it feels like Americans will go back on their word quite a bit. I have a glare on these, so I'm going to take them off. Okay. And let's see, what else was about that? So I actually started thinking, for instance, about vaccines, because my family is obsessed with talking about vaccines. But one of the reasons why in a country like Finland, if we're going to compare it to Russia or the US, that people were very okay with getting vaccines has to do with the high public trust towards society and the government, and not believing that the government is trying to secretly screw them over all the time. Whereas you could see that that idea or notion was a lot less common in Russia and the US, where there was a lot more of an anti-vaccine campaign. Well, I would say that it's very like 50-50 split in the US. I would say the overwhelming majority of people, not just in Russia, but in the post-Soviet space, was that the vaccine is like, doesn't work, it's not effective, and it's, I don't even know what they thought it was. They just thought that it was not a good thing to get. I don't know if they thought it was like poison or what, not necessarily, but they just were like, oh, like, you know, we don't know what it is and we don't need it. And this got really complicated also in places like Kyrgyzstan, where they're Muslim and they're a lot more fatalistic, and they're like, oh, if it's my time to go, it's my time to go. And yeah, they would just be like, whatever. Okay. Now, just in general, I think that there is a lot of trust in Finland. Like, I would always joke that you can't jaywalk in Finland because people are going to stare at you and it's going to be a problem. Like, it's like very offensive when you jaywalk. You can technically get a ticket in the US for jaywalking. I've heard of that happening once, but it doesn't like really actually happen. And in Russia, I feel like some of these laws just don't really exist altogether. I don't know exactly how it works in Russia. I just don't have enough experience or understanding of the way the country works with some of this legal stuff. But in Kyrgyzstan, one of the weirdest things that I learned was you don't want the police showing up to a car accident, because then they're going to help you solve the problem, and that's going to require paying them money. So it's better for you to just figure it out yourself. Like, that was very weird to me, that you don't just automatically get a police report from a car accident the way you would in the US. So, you know, obviously things work very differently in each of these countries. But one of the other conversations that can be had around this with the whole high trust society in Finland thing, aside from just, I feel like I can leave my stuff out and nobody's going to take it. I would not do that in the US. Yeah, I really wouldn't. But the concept of taxes and, you know, where your tax money goes, how you feel like your tax money is being spent, because I think this whole tax avoidance issue is much more of an American issue. I can't speak to how taxes work in Russia. I have no idea. I would have to ask my Russian speaking segment about that. But it just feels like people in Finland are maybe on average a bit more supportive about the fact that their taxes, they know that they go towards social programs. Whereas in the US, we don't have those as much, so sometimes you really wonder. And everybody's talking about the trajectory with Social Security to be bankrupt by the time that people in my generation would actually be using the system. So that can be pretty disheartening when you're going to pay your taxes. But I really wrote down some things, and I feel like my brain is not working today. I'm tired now. But yeah, in terms of paying taxes, it's not as complicated in Finland. Supposedly, don't know. I have not tried to do that yet, so I guess I will find out this year when Scott, whatever it is, the tax administration sends me a letter and is like, "Are your taxes correct?" But yeah, I can see also how this whole general trust in society has been getting a little bit more skewed or is changing due to the fact that you have a lot more foreigners in Finland now. So I'm sure that can be confusing and hard to navigate. There was actually a comment I'd received about this with the whole job market thing in Finland and how it's like vouching for somebody is why the word of mouth thing and the whole nepotism thing is going to go a lot further and be more effective than just hiring somebody randomly because it feels like more of a risk to the company. Yeah, I found that whole notion to be very fascinating. So I don't know exactly where I want to go with this, but I think it is a good point that this is one of the things that can be very culture shockish, maybe coming from a country where there's just generally less public trust and public support and, trust in the government and in society around you. When you come to Finland, understanding that that's not exactly how it works and that there is a high degree of trust, but at the same time, there is a high degree of expectation that you are going to do things exactly as they should be done. And if you don't, people are not going to like you and sort of maybe ostracize you in one way or another from society. I'm not sure if that's true, but I would assume that's probably what happens to some degree. Or they kick you out of the country if you're foreign. I have no idea. I'm making things up right now, but it's not received well. That's what I'm trying to get at. It is generally frowned upon as a moral failing and is quite a problem. But yeah, now that I'm an adult and now that I feel like an adult and I need to think about taxes, this was really something I started thinking about because I'm like, how the heck do I do my taxes in Finland? So I've actually been reading a lot online about how to do this, and yes, I need to figure that out. So that is one thing. But it's also really interesting because if I am going to start these different business ideas, taxes are obviously another thing that's going to need to happen, but obviously I have to have a profit first, which I don't have because the businesses are still ideas and have not actually been manufactured yet into the real world. So this is kind of everything for today. I think I'm a little bit too tired and I'm hungry and all these other things. Tired and hungry, not a good combination. So I'll leave it at that. But the point of this video was just to talk about how public trust in Finland is definitely an anomaly when you come from the US. I don't know exactly how it feels in other European countries. I would assume not quite the same as in Finland. It feels like Finland is an exception. I have no idea whether that has to do with how small the community is and close-knit, tight-knit it is, whatever you want to call it. So there's a lot more social accountability. Actually, Armenia is a country like this too. I was told that, but it has more to do with how it reflects on your family name. So that's why people don't want to do bad things because everybody knows everybody and it's just going to affect your family in a negative way. But in Finland, it just feels like that's the way that people have been culturally raised and integrated, and that's how they're supposed to behave, and people sort of accept this as fact. So I think that's everything that I have for this, and I don't know. I guess I'll try to make a video tomorrow and hope I'll be less tired. So until then, bye.